Number 5, the miracle on ice. Our amateur kids over the Soviet pros 4-3. This was February 22nd, 1980. Winter Olympics, Lake Placid, New York. I was there on press row, just above the rink in an arena that seated only 8,500. I've told this story before. I covered this game on the final Friday night of those Olympics only because I couldn't think of anything else to write about. And because when I asked the U.S. press liaison if he had any more tickets for the hockey game, he said, I've got a whole bunch. Many journalists at those Olympics figured that semifinal matchup would turn out a whole lot like the exhibition between the two teams had played out. That was 13 days earlier at Madison Square Garden. That exhibition wound up 10-3 Soviets. But that night in that little arena, I sat there in dumbfounded awe as our kids from the start just looked faster and hungrier than the Soviets. I'm no hockey expert, but in the end, the miracle on ice to me didn't feel like an upset. The better team won. I know I won. How lucky was I to wind up at the most epic event in U.S. Olympic history that was only shown to the nation that night on tape delay. My rival Dallas columnist had already gone home because our living conditions were so awful for those 2 weeks. I still have a t-shirt that says, I survived the 1980 Winter Olympics at Lake Placid. And believe it or not, the bottom line, or maybe the punchline to all of the above is, this soon led to my being hired away by the rival Dallas newspaper. Whew, what a night. Number 6, the Rumble in the Jungle, October 30th, 1974, Kinshasa, Zaire. Muhammad Ali shocking the world and shocking George Foreman in the greatest heavyweight boxing upset ever. And yeah, I know Buster Douglas over Mike Tyson, but Mike was a personal wreck by that point and didn't train at all for that fight. You understand, members of Ali's inner circle truly believed George Foreman might kill Ali, literally take Ali's life in the ring. George Foreman was a glowering beast who had destroyed the only two fighters who had beaten Muhammad Ali. That was Joe Frazier and Ken Norton. Destroyed them both in just 2 rounds. Ali's life was up for grabs that night, or so a lot of people believed. Now, this one I did not attend. I was just out of Vanderbilt, working for the Miami Herald. So I beheld this epic stunner as part of a sold-out closed circuit crowd at an arena in West Palm Beach, Florida. Of course, Ali, my childhood hero, masterminded and executed the most ingenious strategy ever. He rope-a-doped George Foreman. Ali leaned back against the ropes with his gloves protecting his face, and he successfully lured George Foreman into pounding and pounding and pounding away at Ali's body and wearing himself out. Ali was able to knock out a worn-out Frazier, believe it or not, in the 8th round. You might say Ali put George Foreman on the grill that night. I was so amazed and inspired that night that I remember I went home, had to obviously work the next day, and I was never able to actually fall asleep. That was the most stunning sports spectacle I ever had the privilege of experiencing, even via closed circuit. Number 8. The most unlikely World Series home run ever off the bat of Kirk Gibson, October 15th, 1988, Dodger Stadium out here in Los Angeles. I was there, unfortunately. I was up against a very tight deadline that night. I had written an entire column that had the Oakland A's winning that game one, as it appeared all along they would. After all, their closer, Dennis Eckersley, had led the American League in saves with 45, and he would be baseball's most dominant closer of the next 5 seasons. Dodgers, down a run, man on first, 2 outs, bottom 9. And out of nowhere, here came Kirk Gibson, who was active but rumored to be unavailable because he had a pulled hamstring on one leg and a sore knee on the other. And I thought, uh-oh. I'd already sent in my column, my entire column. But Kirk Gibson fell behind 0-2, and I heaved a little sigh of relief. Then he battled back to a full count. Kirk Gibson later said that Dodger scout Mel Didier, a man I got to know in spring training in Florida, that Mel Didier had told the Dodgers that on 3-2, Eckersley almost always came with the backdoor slider. Gibson anticipated backdoor slider, and he got it. Batting left-handed, his back foot slipped as he made contact, but he was so strong and the contact was so perfectly solid that the ball was gone off his bat. Easily cleared the right field fence. I immediately ran for the nearest payphone. Again, no cell phones in 1988. And fortunately, that payphone was available on sort of the mezzanine level of Dodger Stadium because everyone else in that ballpark was going berserk. And I jumped on that phone and I dictated off the top of my head. Try that on for size. I dictated a whole new top half of my column. And then we just sort of melded it with the bottom half that they already had. I believe that was the worst column I ever wrote, ever. Thank you, Kirk Gibson. Number 9, I was there that April Sunday afternoon in 1987 at Augusta National, just a few feet away, as this kid from Augusta, Georgia, named Larry Mize, looked to be in big trouble on number 11. This was a playoff against 2 larger-than-life golf giants, Seve Ballesteros and Greg Norman, the Great White Shark. Seve had bowed out with a bogey on number 10 in the playoff. And now it looked like this mere mortal in the playoff, this short-knocking Larry Mize, was about to hand Norman his first of probably many green jackets. Check that. Larry Mize's middle name was Hogan, and the great Ben Hogan had always said that if on Sunday he hit his second to 11 on the green, he'd made a mistake. The play, Hogan always said, was to miss the green right and take the pond out of play, just as Mize had done. But Norman's ball was perched in the green's fringe, well inside of Larry Mize. And I seriously doubted Mize could get down in 2 and force a third playoff hole, which would have been the great number 12. After all, Larry Mize was now chipping downhill, big break toward the water. Wouldn't have surprised me if Larry Mize had chipped it in the water. Instead, from 140 feet, that's almost 50 yards, Mize sent his ball rolling and rolling and rolling and breaking and breaking and breaking down, down, down into the cup. Larry Mize had just pulled off the most electrifying major championship shot I have ever witnessed, holding a perilous, pressure-packed chip to win the Masters and to become the only Augusta native before or since to win the Masters. Think about this. Greg Norman won 71 tournaments worldwide, including 2 British Opens. Seve won 90 tournaments worldwide, including 5 majors. Larry Mize won 4 total tournaments in his career, but one was the 1987 Masters, where Jack Nicklaus the great Jack Nicklaus, who had won the year before in 1986, put the green jacket on Larry Mize? Only at the Masters, which annually gives us the most consistent drama of any sports event in the world. In the world. Okay, number 10. This is a true story I have never told. On the afternoon of October 13th, 1960, just after lunch, at Mayfair Grade School in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, I started feeling terrible. Headache, stomachache. I was just legit sick. This happened to be the day of Game 7 of the World Series. This was Yankees at Pirates. In those days, they were always played in the afternoon. And several of my classmates were, resting their heads on their hands like this to sort of hide the transistor radio and the cord and the earpiece in their ear. Our third grade teacher, Mrs. Lowther, wouldn't let us turn on the TV and actually watch the game, but she looked the other way on transistor radio earpieces, so you could just sort of do this as she spoke, or you worked on whatever you're supposed to be working on. I did have my transistor that day, my dad's transistor, but I was in no mood to listen to any of the game. I was sick. I'm talking about throw up sick, lie down sick. I finally managed to walk up to Miss Lowther's desk. I told her, I need to see the nurse. Miss Lowther knew that I wasn't a sickly kid. No hypochondriac was I. So she actually walked me to the nurse's office. Nurse, in just a couple of minutes, concluded I just needed to go home. My parents both worked, so I told her I'd be okay just to ride my bike the 4 blocks home, and I did. I immediately fell asleep on the living room couch, but I woke up in a wet sweat in I don't know, like 30 or 40 minutes. I felt awful, but I thought, I wonder if the game's over yet. So I crawled over to the TV. I turned it on, and lo and behold, it was the bottom of the ninth. No exaggeration. It was the bottom of the ninth, and Bill Mazeroski, the Pirates' little second baseman, was leading off against Ralph Terry pitching for the Yankees. Now, understand, I wasn't the biggest Yankees fan, but I did love me some Mickey Mantle because he was from my state, Oklahoma. Later, I did become friends with the Mick. But the Yankees just hadn't been able to shake these pesky Pirates. I'd never seen anything like this, haven't seen anything since like this in a World Series. The Yankees had won their games in this World Series 16-3, 10-0, and 12-0. But here the Yankees were in Game 7 with the score tied 9-9. What? Mazeroski had hit only 11 homers that season. The first pitch was a high curveball, ball one. Last thing I expected at that moment was, what? On pitch number 2, Mazeroski jumped all over a high fastball and sent a line shot to deep left center at Old Forbes Field in Pittsburgh. You can watch it on YouTube. Forbes Field had ivy-covered walls like Wrigley did, but there were no bleachers beyond the left field wall. So Yogi Berra, playing left field for the Yankees, looked for a moment like he thought it was going to hit the top of the wall because he backed off to play the carom, but it was gone. I couldn't believe it. I had just witnessed what would go down as the greatest home run in World Series history, even greater than Kirk Gibson's, that would be, because mean, this was Game 7 against the New York Yankees. Gibson's Game 1. Dodgers did go on to win in 5, but this was the Yankees, the dynastic Yankees. And I had just witnessed what still stands as the greatest World Series game ever played. At least I saw the end of it. All because I was legit sick. Now, I felt a little better the next morning. I didn't even tell my mom I was sick. She wouldn't have cared. But I woke up and I just decided, because I didn't miss school, I just decided, tough it out, just go on to school. Of course, several of the guys in my class were all over me that morning about faking illness so that I could go home and watch the game the whole world was now talking about. I got mad enough at one kid to fight him, but Mrs. Lowther intervened. I think she knew what was happening. I was sick, I tell you, and I think she believed me. I guess I should have stayed home that day just to prove I was sick, but I wasn't built that way. I got sick, then I got lucky. I saw the greatest game and the greatest home run ever. Then I slept it off and I toughed it out and I went right back to school the next day. That's who I was, that's who I am, and that's the truth.